Good morning, Bucharest. How are you doing? Good? Yeah? Better? I'm great. I love this. What a fantastic venue. I'm going to talk to you about something that I'm super passionate about. And I hope that at the end of my speech, you will be with me when I say that circular economy is the missing link to tackle climate change. And this is not Hans. This is me. But in case you don't recognize me, this picture was taken 5 years ago and 2 kids ago. In my hometown, the city of Prague, I just landed my job as an advisor to the mayor on circular economy. And our task was to recommend the most impactful solutions that would get Prague to carbon neutrality. But what does it mean to be a circular economist? Well, we're busy with resources, with the stuff, with the tons that come in and out of different systems, like a city, or company, or factory, or even a nation. And we ask ourselves questions such as, where did that stuff come from? Does it have any recycled content in it? Or did it have to be mined somewhere at the other part of the world? How long are we using it? To what purpose is it serving? And most importantly, what are we going to do with it when it reaches the end of its life? And when we started looking at the numbers in Prague, I realized that Prague is not going to go carbon neutral if we focus on plastic straws, plastic bags, or even the solar panels. We needed to focus on key sectors that were by far the biggest consumers of resources and the biggest producers of waste. And those sectors were construction. So how do we build the city? Food. How do we feed the city? And mobility. How do people move around? But when you think about it, the challenges that Prague deals with in these key sectors are not that different from the rest of the world. And there's no better way to start than with the story of sand. It's all around us, right? It's the most used raw mineral and material right next to the water. But the more we are and the richer we get, the more we build. And the more we build, the more we extract. And the more we extract, the bigger the pressure we generate on the local ecosystems and the societies. And even something as abundant as sand from construction is becoming a scarce commodity in some parts of the world. And in others, the price of extraction to the local communities, ecosystems, or even for the economy is too high. But not only we extract too much, we're also terrible at working with what we already have. An average car in Europe is parked about 93% of the time that we own it. A drill is used for 5 minutes of its whole lifetime, and then it's just sitting in our basement. Or think of buildings. As I speak, right now, 30% of all the office spaces in San Francisco are empty. New York, 20%. Paris, 15%. The list goes on. And here comes the craziest part. Virtually everything that you see around yourself, your clothes, your phone, the watches, will become waste sooner or later, and often too soon. And when we think of, well, I'll throw this away, there is no magical way. Waste accumulates on landfills, in open dumps, in our oceans, in incinerators, and only a small amount of it actually gets recirculated back into our economy. And I would say one of the craziest examples of waste is food waste. Around 30% of all the food we produce on this planet is wasted. That's about 1.3 billion tons every year, while more than 1 billion people go hungry to sleep every day. This is the linear economy, the world that we live in today. The world where we take stuff off the ground, we make things of that. Then at the end of their lives, and often the lives are too short, we just waste them. But where is this all heading? I believe that we are heading into a major problem if we don't radically redesign our relationship with resources and waste. Going carbon neutral is not just about decarbonizing our grid. We have to get smarter with the way that we treat our planetary resources. But what if I told you there is a way? I believe circular economy is the way. I believe it's the way to decouple extraction from prosperity. And in theory, it's not that difficult, right? Circular economy promises a world without waste, where resources flow in endless loops without losing quality, and where we have a positive or neutral impact on the environment while doing what we need to do. And if you think it's a rocket science, it's not, because our planet has been doing this for billions of years. But I need you to remember one thing. Don't mistake it with the recycling economy. Recycling is just one of many important tools in the circular economy toolbox. But we can't recycle our way out of this crisis. Recycling means turning things into new things again, but we cannot recycle everything we produce. Not everything is recyclable, and not everything gets collected. So I'm going to share with you some brilliant examples from all over the world, because in practice, we are just relearning how to go circular. But there are great things happening across the continents. And I'm going to wrap it up in a powerful framework of 6 R's that you can all bring with you tomorrow when you go back to work, and you can apply it to make a real impact. The first R, the most impactful R, is retain. Maintain the existing assets and extend their lifetime for as long as possible. Gothenburg, the city where I live right now in Sweden, wants to be a carbon neutral city by 2035. But at the same time, it has a problem, because it needs to build about 80,000 new apartments during that same time. And when the politicians looked at those two challenges, they realized they are not compatible. If they build those 80,000 apartments from scratch in a linear way, they will not be carbon neutral, quite the opposite. So they teamed up with the developers, property owners, architects, researchers, and they came up with a challenge. Gothenburg will provide those 80,000 apartments without building anything new, by looking at empty office spaces empty factories, or brownfields. Now, they're just getting started, but I think that project is an immense inspiration for all of us. So stay tuned and follow it. The second R is rethink. Redesign the system and rethink how value chains are organized and phase out linear incentives. When we think of mobility and its decarbonization, at least on my mind, I think of electrification. The demand for batteries for mobility, like cars or micromobility like bikes, is expected to increase 30% every year from here on till 2030. But there are a lot of bottlenecks with that transition. Batteries are made from certain very, very rare metals and minerals. Some of them, like cobalt, are mined in horrible, horrible conditions in Africa. And the worst part is that those batteries that you see in those scooters are not repairable. One fuel cell breaks, and you can throw that whole thing away. Until now. Because there's Gouache, a French startup that has developed batteries that are made from the old batteries and that are repairable. And the best part about it is that they maintain the ownership of those batteries. You can subscribe to them, you can lease them, you can pay per kilometer driven. But when something happens with them, Gouache has an incentive to bring it back and turn it into something new again and again and again. The third R is regenerate. Harmonize with nature and contribute positively to the local environment and the biodiversity. Now, this case is personal because in Prague, when we started, we looked at, okay, of course, politically, what can we do as soon as possible, as fast as possible, with the biggest impact? And we realized that Prague owns a lot of things, properties, companies, but also land. Around 1,600 hectares had been leased to the local farmers for decades, owned by the city of Prague. But we know that the conventional agriculture hasn't been that friendly to the local biodiversity. So we turned it around. Back in 2019, we said, whoever wants to rent that land, those 16,000 hectares, has to abide by eco-certified principles, such as respecting crop rotation, using organic fertilizers instead of the mineral ones, and no pesticides, no fungicides, and no herbicides. We saw a year later a positive spike in the local biodiversity. The birds came back, the bugs came back. And on top of it, we started producing healthy food to our local communities. The fourth R is reduce. Do more with less. Design stuff to reduce the material use, energy consumption, and waste during production, and even more importantly, during use. And that's why I love Bonap. It's a Romanian startup. Has anyone ever heard about it? Can you raise your hands? Well, there you go, right? It's a food surplus app. They're connecting hotels, cafeterias, and restaurants with the food that would otherwise go to waste to end consumers, saving thousands of meals every day while providing the food at the lower price than the customers would otherwise be able to get it for. The fifth R is one of my favorites. Check this out. I know you've heard about reusable plastic bottles, but have you ever seen a reusable skyscraper? No, not me, until recently, but this example is from Sydney, from Quay Quarter Tower, where the local developer has decided to renovate the existing skyscraper while maintaining as much as possible from the original structures. And they managed to reuse about 62% of the walls of the original building and 98% of the original core wall structures. They have won multiple awards. It's becoming a hallmark of sustainable architecture, not only in Australia. And last but not the least, recover. close the loop, recover value from materials at their end of life, and loop them back in. And Renault has been doing that for more than a decade. In fact, it is a remanufacturing champion in the global automotive world. They are taking back the old engines, turbos, or gearboxes, and they are remanufacturing them together with a series of partners from regional warehouses, primary networks, or remanufacturers. They managed to create the same product, the same quality, while reducing 40% of the costs and saving about 80% of energy and 88% of the water. Now, to bring it all home, I would like to leave you with some key takeaways from today. The first and foremost, collaborate. This is really for everyone. That's why we are all here, right? To network, shake hands, talk to a stranger, because you never know where that conversation will lead you. Because if we want to go far, we need to go together. Second, and that's probably the most important one, it's the waste hierarchy. Prevention is key. Everyone talks about recycling. Recycling that, recycling that, recycling that. But it's just the end of it. We need to be spending 80% of our attention and money on not producing waste in the first place. I hope I made it clear, and I hope you're with me when I say that we cannot go carbon neutral without being circular. The energy transition is essential, but it's just one half of the coin. And the other is resources. And that's circularity. Fourth, regulation in the EU is uncompromising. I mean, every year there are these massive new packages that are hitting European industries, SMEs, cities, regions, nations with new and more ambitious targets. Some people might see it as a risk, but I see it as an immense opportunity to get on board and focus on some of those market inefficiencies and build something wonderful on top of it. And I know it's scary. Looking at these numbers that Hans shared with us can be depressing. But I'm excited because I can see the new future in front of me. I know we can do it. So let's have fun and let's go at it. Let's make it happen. And a little bit of a bonus at the end. It's a personal challenge to all of you. So when you go shopping next time, think before you buy. Do I already have this? Because if you do, don't buy it. Do I have something that's broken and I can fix it? Maybe the hole in the pants. Do it. Can I buy it secondhand? Well, if so, then do it. Because that's the way to actually do something good for the planet, to consume less. Thank you.